Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Now, as tensions persist along NATO's eastern flank, Secretary General Mark Rutte visited Warsaw to underscore the alliance's unwavering commitment to Polish and regional security. With record high defense spending and direct threats from Moscow still looming, NATO faces growing pressure to adapt to 21st century warfare, from nuclear deterrence to missile defense and space-based threats. Joining us today on TVP World to assess NATO's posture and preparedness is Tomáš Nagy, Senior Research Fellow for Nuclear, Space and Missile Defense at GLOBSEC. As a leading expert on transatlantic and regional security, Mr. Nagy offers a sharp perspective on the alliance's evolving defense strategy. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's take a look at the current situation in NATO, where its unity is often emphasized publicly, but now when it comes to solid cohesion behind closed doors in terms of long-term strategy, how would you characterize it at the moment?
Well, NATO is in a very interesting period in its history. Obviously, we have been witnessing for over just about 7 weeks now, the Trump administration is really taking a different approach that, as they say, reflects the changed strategic reality and kind of solidifies the future that they perceive that will be inevitably coming, and that's in America, which is more focused on Asia, which in itself is certainly a challenge for NATO on multiple fronts. First and foremost, politically, cohesion is a very, very important element of NATO, just for the credibility of the Article 5, that's an indispensable element. And then on the defense side of it, obviously capabilities are crucially important when it comes to exercising functioning deterrence. And if shall deterrence fail for any reason, if you move from deterrence to active defense, you need capabilities. And frankly speaking, in Europe, with the current change in the rapidly changing security environment, Europe is in need of capabilities that at this point only the US can provide Europe. Obviously, I think the message went through in the past 7 weeks or so. Europe is adopting a new level of ambition to build up and to have a more balanced, I would say, European pillar to the American pillar to NATO. But that is certainly going to require some time. Needless to say, I think the U.S. expectation is that by the next summit, which will happen in 3 months or so, there will be very strong commitments made on defense spending. Mm-hmm. But obviously by then, the expectation is that NATO will agree on a new set of capability targets that will actually enable to transform the political ambitions on the area of defense and deterrence into an actual workable framework that NATO will be utilized in the forthcoming years. So it will be, in many terms, a consequential summit. And what we are seeing with Mark Rutte traveling across Europe is making sure that there is an understanding about how important that summit is going to be, even at the highest political levels. Poland is a somehow specific country because it sort of gets the message very right. Poland has been investing in its own national defense priorities, which are also NATO priorities, for the past couple of years at a level which is, I would say, pretty exceptional within the alliance, and more countries want to adopt, if I may say, the Polish model. But even in case of Poland, I think there are interesting questions to ask. How long is this sustainable? Will there be cohesion between the political level and the societal level? So this is sustainable in the long run. You've mentioned previously the kind of looming Russian threat, which is sort of imminent. So NATO is facing a number of challenges, and it needs to make sure that it will come out from the summit in June, not in a weakened position compared to where it is today.
Yeah, you mentioned Mark Rutte has been making the rounds, and Warsaw being one of his destinations. Yesterday, he made another commitment and reaffirmed NATO's Article 5 commitment during the visit. How credible do you think that is as a deterrence message to Moscow?
Well, I think that was the main message that he came to reiterate, because in other countries, I would say, there is always a push to make sure that countries go along with the defense spending ambition and do that in a speedy manner, because time is of essence, and really the expectations is that it's going to happen quick and fast, and also that you will have a capability build-up centric defense policies all around Europe. In Poland, the situation is different because you certainly need to communicate different messages, because this kind of message already resonates in Poland. So I think that the message that Mark Rutte was aiming to bring here is just simply don't give up on NATO, because we have this, frankly speaking, rough political period between the US administration and European governments. This is still the best alliance that there can be. NATO has an exquisite set of features that no other alliance has, like a unified command structure. It has a fairly newly adopted defense plans, which are crucial for defending Poland. So it does have a set of features that no one else has, and certainly Europe would not have imminently. Shall we ever move to a situation where NATO is not here as a compact between the US and Europe? Which I still think that there is an understanding on both sides of the Atlantic that it certainly gives both Washington and European capitals to a much better position to be in if we continue the cooperation that we have started decades ago. But obviously that needs to change. I don't think that in Moscow there is an understanding that they can pursue with an opportunistic aggression as of now, but they certainly see certain trends which they might feel are kind of encouraging for them, and they certainly want to wait out what the summit will bring, and how the cohesion of NATO will be, hopefully from our perspective, strengthened, or hopefully from their perspective further undermined.
Do you think Mark Rutte also speak for the United States as well when he makes that commitment? Because that's where the big question mark is at, right? Like whether or not the U.S. will start kind of gradually even pull out of the alliance.
Well, yeah, I mean, that he is facing really a challenging task. So first and foremost, he needs to make sure that, the political cohesion is there. I think that's his main role. I mean, he has undersecretaries to streamline other kind of defense-specific agendas, but his primary role is make sure that there is an understanding at the highest political level that it's beneficial for all of us to be in this kind of alliance. And that's something that he's working on very actively. It is, certainly a more challenging task to do today than it was 4 years ago and 8 years ago. The U.S. posture, as you mentioned, is most likely going to be altered in some way or form. We have seen in the first Trump administration, there already was a hint of how the administration might perceive the appropriate set of forces being placed in Europe. A couple of years later now, it's actually even more challenging to distribute the available U.S. forces globally. And I think it's fair to say that Europe needs to prepare for some kind of adjustments that, from our perspectives, will mean reductions of U.S. presence in Europe. The hope is that if it's going to happen, it will be gradual, and it will not happen imminently and not swiftly. So Europe will be given a time to adapt and to make sure that it will not come at the expense of our overall deterrence potential. For that, certainly the U.S. commitment needs to be sound. At the more kind of tactical level, it's important for NATO to continue with the exercises that are planned and that are foreseen to take place in 2025, but also beyond 2025. Some of the U.S. commitments that have been made to help us with the integrated air and missile defense capabilities, with the long-range fires. I think the goal of Europe is to make sure that those kind of commitments will be honored by the U.S.
Speaking of the world political situation and some of the exercise that's going on, I'm also curious about this recent situation right now, if you can shed some light on it, because, well, we do know that there's 4 missing soldiers from the United States that's missing during this NATO drills. Now, Lithuania's defense minister is saying there's no confirmation of the fate of these soldiers, whereas initially Mark Rutte suggested that the soldiers have been killed, which later they clarified that no, we still haven't found them yet. Do you think that this might turn into some kind of powder keg that lights up the kind of rough political situation you're mentioning even more, or do you think maybe it would be kind of written off as probably the casualties during these sort of exercises?
I mean, we have been in similar situations before, and I think history should have taught us that it's always good to wait until there's an investigation and we have all the facts on the table and checked. This seems to be not the case this time, and there might have been some statements made, which I understand that there is a news value in communicating this. But even certainly, I'm not in position to make a judgment of what exactly happened and what has led to this kind of different approaches to communication, and certainly some kind of misalignment in the communication. So I think here, I don't want to dodge this question, but I think we will simply need to wait out until we know all the facts and we can kind of place it into the right context.
Right, perhaps that's the most level-headed way to look at this as well. So thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.